following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Brought to you by Macy's Grocery Stores. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
Happy Sunday to you and welcome on in. It's another edition of First and 12 right here on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone. Alex Kirry and Mitch Harper. Well, it looks like this is going to be the final episode of the season this year. We thought maybe there'd be a BYU Big 12 championship game, but that's not to be had. But we are going to kick things off as we always do. Our program brought to you by Macy's. Get the freshest fruits and vegetables from your local favorite brands and all of the local farms as well. You expect it, and you know what Macy's delivers. It's Macy's. Happy shopping. Mitch, let's jump in here. Let's get to our Big 12 headlines.
12 headlines.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
The dozen storylines that shape this week of Big 12 football. Headline 1.
Iowa State and Arizona State, they're going to play in the Big 12 championship game. They both took care of business on Saturday, and they will meet next week in Arlington in AT&T Stadium, 10 a.m. Mountain Time on ABC. Should be a good football game, but Arizona State, they are playing outstanding ball. But that's your matchup in the Big 12 championship game. Headline number 2, BYU earns their 10th win of the season, but looks unimpressive in a 30-18 victory over Houston.
Yeah, and we'll keep that rolling here with a lot of these other headlines here. Part of the reason that I think a lot of folks see the disparity right now with what BYU, the way their offense is playing. Arizona State absolutely demolished Arizona in the Territorial Cup in Arizona, in Tucson, 49-7. Cam Scadaboo, basically solidifying that first team all Big 12. And just another dream moment for Kenny Dillingham and his guys. Sun Devils absolutely roll, and they get this thing going. And it was their first 10-win season since 2014. Can you imagine what ASU is going through? Just an absolute dream of a season for them. In a year that the bottom of the conference predictions at the beginning of the season have now ended up at the top of the standings in the Big 12, not just Arizona State, but, of course, BYU and so many other folks who are outperformed and then other people who underperformed this year.
Travis Hunter, he's always had expectations, and he continues to outperform those. Coach Prime, after the game, you'll hear from him coming up a little bit later this hour, but did he lock down the Heisman Trophy in that blowout victory over Oklahoma State, you think?
I'm not one of those guys that loves to hand it to somebody who, plays a ton of snaps. I get it, and is a really, really an amazing athlete. But you know what? I said it, I think, on our show on Friday. You haven't had a superstar quarterback across college football. Quarterbacks just get the automatic nod, and when you don't have a season like this year, there's no Joe Burrow. There's no Jaden Daniels. I just named 2 LSU quarterbacks who won the Heisman Trophy. But, those guys put up insane numbers, and you couldn't not give it to them. And I think that in a year like this where you have kind of down quarterback play across the country, Mitch, maybe you disagree, I think Travis Hunter's got it locked up for sure. And you know what? Good for them. They'll get their second Heisman Trophy winner at Colorado, and Prime brought a Heisman Trophy winner to Colorado if that ends up being the case with Travis Hunter winning that trophy.
Would be pretty impressive, that's for sure. Either him or Ashton Genty. I don't think you can go wrong with either one of those guys. Utah ends a 7-game losing streak with a win at UCF. Now we wait for Kyle Whittingham's decision. We'll have more on that breakdown with the Utes coming up at the top of hour number 2. Baylor, Alex, what a turnaround for the Bears.
Massive.
6th straight win as they roll to a 45-17 victory over the nation's hottest team in Kansas. Sawyer Robertson was brilliant. He had 310 passing yards. These Baylor Bears, 8-4. They're in the season. One of the best teams, I think, at season's end in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, 8 wins, and they retained Dave Aranda, and, kind of a forgotten storyline because they started off so slow. But, yeah, how about Kansas? I'm not going to dog them, man. I know they lost 45-17 to end that
Great
season.
Great turnaround.
A phenomenal job by Lance Leipold, a guy that I don't usually love to give a ton of credit to. But, man, they turned it around. Kansas, I think that they've got bright bright days ahead of them. There's an expectation there now in Lawrence, and I think they're probably going to live up to it a little bit more in the future here. Taj Brooks shines on Senior Day, has 188 yards on the ground, by the way, and 3 touchdowns as West Virginia gets absolutely blasted by the Red Raiders. And speaking of 8-win teams, Joey McGuire's guys, they looked a little bit mid for a lot of this season, but, man, they could score points, Mitch. That was a really, really good offensive team.
How crazy was it, this stat? First 8-win regular season. That's not including a bowl. 8-win regular season for the Red Raiders since 2009. That was
wild.
Mike Leach. That's been a long time for Texas Tech to have 8 wins.
Yeah, that means your guy, Patrick Mahomes, didn't even do it back when he was holding the reins down there at Texas Tech. But I'll tell you, UCF, we thought was going to have an amazing season, and they haven't just melted down. They've hit DEFCON 1 because that whole place exploded after that loss last night. Utah, of course, gets that win down there, but you've got Gus Malzahn leaving. You've got all the players leaving. I do not know what's going to be left over from this UCF team. Terry Mohajir got a lot of homework to do in the offseason here.
Yeah, it's going to be a total reset, but I honestly think for UCF, it's going to be a good thing because Gus Malzahn ran that thing into the ground. I don't know the context of that video where he was waving off someone on the sideline during that broadcast, but that was not a good look. Whatever
Weird,
that was, it was very strange. It did not look like a head coach, a leader. So I think it's going to be a good thing that UCF moves on from him. And they once branded themselves the future of college football. They got to get back to that by getting a young up-and-comer in that head coach spot. Number 9, TCU holds off Cincinnati in a snowy game in Cincy. 20-13, Bearcats close out the season on a 5-game losing streak. Cincy ends up 5-7, and all the kind of good vibes that we thought maybe were percolating at Cincinnati at 5-2. Well, it feels like they kind of went by the wayside as it reverted back to who we thought this program was with Scott Satterfield, a losing one. They go no bowl game for the second consecutive year, just a couple seasons after reaching the playoff at 3 years ago.
The Big 12 media poll at the beginning of the season only had 1 out of the top 5 teams that finished with a winning record this season. The bottom of the conference, by the way, Utah, Arizona, and, of course, Oklahoma State, a combined 4 wins among those 3 really storied program. I say Arizona's not really a storied program, but we thought with all the talent that they had coming in,
sure.
If you had Utah at 2-7 in conference play and Oklahoma State at 0-9 to end the season, Mike Gundy, I know that he's not really on the hot seat, but at the same time, I don't know if his heart's in this thing, man. I mean, honestly, the bottom of this league is as head-scratching as of a performance this year as the ones that are at the top of the league. I don't know which is more wild. What Arizona State did, having a 10-2 season and turning things around, being the 16th team in the preseason poll, or Oklahoma State going 0-9 this year. Mitch, we are covering a bonkers conference, man.
It is absolutely insane, and it's a shame that this league is not getting the respect it deserves, I feel, in the college football playoff rankings. It feels like all these teams have been overlooked by the committee. In fact, this past rankings, many of the Big 12 teams were ranked below Tulane. And look, I'm not willing to knock a team just because they're in the group of 5, but you saw Tulane got beat by Memphis on Thanksgiving night. This Big 12, they produce good football teams. 5 teams in the top 25 last week. Put a little bit more respect on the Big 12. It'd be amazing if this league could produce 2 teams in the playoff, but at a minimum, I feel like the conference champion, whether it's ASU or Iowa State, should be ranked higher than Boise State because this conference, the gauntlet, it's a strong league, and you can't just take any night off, whereas in the Mountain West, Boise State could have some nights off and still win by about 10 points. You can't do it in the Big 12. You get tested every single week, and whoever emerges next week in Arlington, they deserve to be in that top 4 in the first-round playoff bids, and I hope that happens, but I fear it might not.
9 of the 16 teams in the conference, by the way, all going bowling in this offseason. So that's a positive one as well for Brett Yormark and his conference. We'll take a break here. We'll come back. We'll come back. We've got our Big 12 Sound Roundup next. You don't want to miss any of it. Coach Prime, Joey McGuire from Texas Tech. So many other things to jump in and talk about here. So let's get right to it. That's around the corner right here on 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone and on KSL News Radio.